Hello everyone, this is Shanghe. Today I'm going to present my papers, MapReduce framework to support in mining software repository. First, let's talk about the research questions. Overall, the research question is how MapReduce framework work in National Vulnerabilities Database. The motivation of this paper is speeding up and scale up researchers analyze on large data set. And second, distributed platforms are hard to reuse, project specific, and offer minimal debugging and deployment support. Let's talk about the MapReduce. So what is it? MapReduce is a programming models implementation for processing big data. The MapReduce algorithms contain two major tasks. They are map and reduce. They only take in inputs in format of key and volume pairs. Map take a set of data and convert it into another set of data, where individual elements are broken down into tuples, key and volumes. So secondly, the reduce task, which it takes the output from the map functions as the input and combine those data tuples into smaller set of tuples as the sequence of the named MapReduce implement. The reduce task is always performed after the map function. And MapReduce framework using which we can write application to process huge amount of data in parallels or on large cluster of commodity hardwares in a reliable manner. MapReduce algorithm. Generally, MapReduce is based on sending computers to where the data reside. MapReduce programs execute in 3 stages: map stage, shuffle stage, and reduce stage. To be more particular, the map stage is the map or the mapper job is to process the input data, in key and volume pairs. Generally, the input data is in the form of files or directories and is stored in HDFS. As you know, the Hadoop file systems, the input files is passed to the mapper functions line by line. The mapper processes the data and create several small chunks of data, and then pass those output data from mapper stage goes directly to the reduce stage. This stage is the combination of shuffle stage and reduce stage. The reduce job is to process the data that come from the mapper. After processing, it produces a new set of output, which will store in HDFS. And then, during a MapReduce job, Hadoop sends map and reduce task to appropriate servers in the cluster. And then the framework manage all the details of the data, passing such as, issue task, verifying task completions, and copy data. And most of the computing task happens on nodes with data on local disk that reduce the network traffic. After completion of the given task, the clusters collect and reduce data to form an appropriate result and send it back to the Hadoop server. And next we're going to talk about input and output of MapReduce. The MapReduce framework operates key volume pairs. That is, the framework view the input to the job as a set of key volume pairs and produce a set of key volume pairs as output of the job. The key and volume class should be serialized minors. Additionally, the key classes had to implement the readable comparables interface to facilitate sortings by the framework, those input and output type of MapReduce job, as shown in this table. K1v1 as input, and then going to the map functions, produce K2v2s before the reduce functions, and pass to reduce functions, produce K3v3 as output. Next, we're going to talk about where are we going to operate MapReduce functions in this particular MVD repository. MVD stands for National Vulnerability Database. This provides a searchable interface and data feeds. It provides a lot of data, so it's searchable. So I type in Java or type in Python those product names, and it will give me list of information about this product, like what kind of vulnerabilities it have, what's the scores, such as buffer overflow, and what particular categories is the vulnerability is. This repository is United States government repositories of standard-based vulnerability management data, representing using the securities content automation protocol. It's provided by NIST. NIST provides ongoing analysis of common vulnerabilities and exposures, stand for CVE, and assign common vulnerabilities scored systems, stand for CVSS, based metrics for each vulnerabilities, and will update a scores if more information can be collected and available to users. The CWE stands for Common Weakness Enumeration, and it has to do with the vulnerabilities, not inst within a product or systems. You can understand like this. CWE is like a dictionary, and it includes ton of categories. Each category is a CVE, and then the more higher that contain the CWE is next one, common attack patterns, enumerations, and classifications, stand for CAPEC. In all experiments, we just take 2 years, 2018 and 2019, to do all experiment. Next is how we actually apply MapReduce in MVD. So we take 2 different years, and compare their reference, the total reference number. So we download the database repositories from the MVDs, and then they give me the format as the JSON format, unstructured. When you work on the real data, it's not clear, and they're all available data to a particular categories. So my research is kind of limited. However, MapReduce only can read readable data. In other words, JSON format is not work for MapReduce. I have to convert it into CSV format for MapReduce framework. On your left-hand side, that's a schema for a JSON format document. You can see that's only part of the format looking like. Each one of them have CVE data type, CVE date format, CVE date version. You can see the version scored, ID, and what kind of vulnerability that is. And in the middle is the code we're actually writing and implement. So we actually use MR jobs. MR job allows user actually directly access to all the MapReduce framework. So in here we can see in the mapper functions, we collect all the URL, that including URL, I take them as volumes in the mapper functions, and I pass the mapper functions to the reduce functions. Sum all the volumes that contain URLs, sum them up together, and give me the output on your right hand side. It's showing the 2018 have more total reference numbers than 2019's. Next, we're going to talk about the pros and cons about MapReduce. The good thing about MapReduce is, large MapReduce come to large data processing compared to traditional relation database management systems. And they're really good at handlings of data-intensive applications. Disadvantage of using MapReduce. When you want to do real-time processing, or when you don't have enough RAM memories, don't use it. Finally, down to conclusions. So these papers introduce how MapReduce framework apply in mining software repository and MapReduce models MVD overview, and talk about advantage and disadvantage of using MapReduce. Future work. MapReduce can be frequently applied in MVD as MVD expand and grow up, and in the future it will contain more products and more vulnerabilities and categories. MVD is security research directions. It can be wild, such as Java plugin to check vulnerabilities when user coding. And here's the reference.